Friends, welcome back to the Joy Channel. I'm your life coach, Heidi B, and today we're going to do another Joy Jam, little lovely life hack that will hopefully support you in your everyday space. So today we're going to be talking about observing versus absorbing. Now, I recently read a quote that said, observe more than you absorb. And it really got me thinking about a lot of different things. So first of all, let's turn to Webster. Let's turn to the good old-fashioned dictionary where observe means to notice or perceive something, right? To really be in this space of looking around, being curious about things, maybe even questioning things within yourself or in the world. But observing really makes me think of, for some reason, standing on a mountaintop and just taking in the view. I think it's really important, and we'll get back to this in a moment, that we really learn to value the view. Now, let's shift gears into absorb. Absorb means to soak up, to take on the attention of, to take up space or take up energy. That's to absorb. I think of this as a sponge, really soaking up everything. And I used to think that it was so important because you hear so many people say, I'm just a sponge, I'm just, taking it all in. But what I've learned over the past couple of years is that absorbing or consuming, consumption is another kind of way of looking at absorbing, taking on versus taking in the view is the difference between absorbing and observing. And taking on things can be really healthy, or it can be really tricky and hijack your healing, health, and happiness. And here's what I mean by that. For instance, if you're watching the news a lot and you're just continuing to consume, absorb all the energy from those radio waves and all the news stories, and you're taking on and absorbing all those things, it begins to take up space in your being, in your body, in your energy. You're giving up precious real estate in your soul, in your body space, by taking on other people's beliefs or maybe even identities. So something to be cautious of when we consider observing versus absorbing is a lot of times we create identities from when we're really, really young. You're the loud one, you're the quiet one, you're the funny one, you're the this, you're the that. You're the youngest, you're the middle, you're the older child. And a lot of things come along with these identities that we've created for ourselves. And so we need to be very aware as we're navigating life as adults, what identities we're still hanging on to that may be holding us back from our highest self, from our most aligned self. I know that a lot of times I hear this a lot when people say, I'm an anxious person. I have anxiety. I have anxiety. And very quickly, when we say the phrase, I am an anxious person or I have anxiety, there's an identity that's been claimed because you've absorbed and absorbed and absorbed and absorbed more anxiety than your body can actually desire to take on. And so it becomes this identity versus simply observing the fact that your body is experiencing sensations of anxiety. It's no different than saying, well, he's just an angry person. He's always been that way. He's just like an angry old man. You guys ever heard that or seen it in a movie? Versus, and that's labeling and just absorbing all of the anger that's coming out versus saying, you know what, I think that person experiences a lot of anger. They just have experienced a lot of anger. So we need to be really careful that we don't label other people or tell them so many things about themselves that they start to believe things about themselves that are not actually true. This can happen in our partnerships, our romantic relationships, our friendships, in parent to child relationships, that we begin to put things out there to others, and they have to be careful that they don't absorb, but rather observe, and decide what is true for you. what is true for you. So observation, I want you to think of, have you ever been working on your computer and your battery goes low battery, low battery? And then it gives you the option to click into energy saver mode. All right. It's because the computer has been absorbing. It's been doing a lot of intake of what you've been asking it for or putting into it for quite some time. And it's been taking up all of its energy. Versus when we go into energy saver mode, then think of it as the observer. So energy saver is really being the observer, just observing, not putting anything in, not taking anything out, just witnessing, just noticing, just viewing. And the same thing on our phones, right? Our phones take up less battery life when we're on airplane mode. We're just observing it. We're just looking at something versus full on energy mode where we're like, look this thing up. Hey, Siri, do this thing for me. And it's like, take, absorb, consume. And consumption takes energy versus observation. It's just simply viewing. It's simply viewing what's happening around you and deciding if it's something that you want to absorb, soak up, take space in your body and your beingness, or let it be, let it free. You're just noticing, and that's it. Nothing more than that. This really, really does help. This observation versus identification piece that I'm talking about really does help with things like anxiety or worry. Instead of saying, I'm just a person who worries all the time. Noticing when your body is in a state of concern is totally different than making stories or labeling yourself and absorbing more and more of that worry. It actually heightens the worry. It actually heightens the anxiety when we just decide, this is it. I've always been this way. It's never going away. Versus just observing. You know what? I notice that my body temperature changes, or my energy levels change when anxiety hits, when I'm experiencing it, and just being the observer and keeping it nice and light and keeping yourself on energy saver mode. Now, going back to observing, like I said, there is value in the view. Think of yourself at the top of that mountain, just taking in the view. Just taking in the view, not making anything more of it. Not every observation needs an opinion. Not every observation needs an expression. Not every observation needs something done with it. Again, if we're on energy saver, we can just simply look around and decide if that observation will float on like a cloud in the sky, not create any taking of our energy, not creating any angst or worry or concern or disgust or frustration. Can it just be something that we observe? But I think a lot of times, I've had this happen many times with myself, is I observe something and then I want to figure out why that happened or why people think that, or create an opinion around it and then share it with everybody versus just observing it and just letting it be your own view and not passing it along and not passing judgment and not doing anything with it. Just observing. That's it, right? Observation can simply be light and free and easy. Observation gets to be a coming back to presence. Observation can be noticing and using your senses, being really fully present in the moment and observing what it smells like, what it sounds like, what it tastes like, what it feels like. Maybe it feels like physically, or even what it feels like emotionally, and just getting really curious around it. Maybe even questioning it for yourself. So observation is a really powerful tool versus absorbing, which is taking on. That can really fill up and take space in our body. That's precious real estate that we can be using for something else that's meant for us. right? We only have so much precious real estate and energy that we can use in our body. So I want to use the example of social media here. Social media is a crazy space, right? It can be a crazy space. And also, it can just be a space where we choose to be the observer or the absorber. This year, I made a pact with myself that I was only going to use social media for the 3 Gs: for giving, for gifting, kind of one and the same, and for growth. Putting an intention behind your consumption or absorption is really, really important. So when we go onto social media, we can go on with the intention of giving something, giving information like we are right here, giving tips, giving tricks, sharing your passions, sharing your gifts. Maybe it's actually giving a gift. Maybe it's telling people that you support a cause and donate here, or participate and come meet me on Saturday and volunteer somewhere using your gifts or giving gifts. And then growth, that expansion, going on social media and seeking spaces that allow you to expand your capacity to feel and think and grow yourself and really expand the version of you that you are. What a beautiful intention. So we want to make sure that if we are going on social media and using it, that's a choice. But I want you to notice when you're in observation mode versus absorption mode or consumption mode. One of my commitments to myself along the same lines is this year on social media, I'm going to create more than I consume. Are you spending more time on social media absorbing and consuming, like taking, and then doing nothing with it? Or are you spending time observing and gifting and growing and giving from that space because it feels right for you? Because it's helping you get closer to the version of the person that you want to be, right? Intention is everything. So that's the gist on observe more more than you absorb. Observe more than you absorb. And I want to end with 4 things to consider in this process of observing versus absorbing, because there are going to be things that are really helpful that you want to take on, that you want to absorb, that you want to keep in your heart and your soul for a long time and maybe even forever. Maybe there's special memories that you're no longer in observation mode. You're in absorption mode. I don't want to forget this feeling. I want this moment to last. I want to take this on forever. I want to take this thing that I just was a part of or witnessed with me to create an even better life for myself. So number 1 is start in observation mode with the intention to just value the view. Start in observation mode with the intention to value the view. Then number 2, once you've valued the view, stay curious. Stay curious and question everything. What am I seeing? How is that created? Why is that there? What does that mean for me? Consider everything. Stay curious and question. Number 3, does this deserve space? Does this observation deserve space inside of me? Do I want to actually take on this thing, this energy? And this follow-up question to number 3 is, does it get me closer to or further from the person I want to be and the life that I want to live? That's a biggie. And if you can answer those 2 questions wholeheartedly and honestly, then you can decide if this is truly serving me. Will I continue to observe, let it float by, or absorb and take it with me? I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear your viewpoint, or hearts or stars or whatever you want to put below. Love this. Tell me more. Tell me your experience. I'm open. I'm curious to all of the joy gems that we have out here. And definitely drop those in the comments or over on my Instagram at joyfullybee. I hope you have an amazing day. Go out into the world, shine your light bright, and live a limitless life. See you soon.